world is finite.
Because the world is finite, I think that people think heaven must be limited as well. I think it makes people feel safer to inflict other people.
Maybe it's virtue signaling.
Maybe. Absolutely. Sure.
Because if somebody does something like this all the time, it's hard to do it another way.
It's hard to do anything another way. Change is nearly impossible. You have to either be forced to change or forced to change. The only reason why I've ever made any huge changes in my life is because it was either change or die. It was sink or swim. When I was in Chicago, I had dated I was married to the last of a long line of men who were wrong for me. And it had reached the end of its line. That modus operandi in my life had reached the end of its line.
Why'd you always pick the wrong man, do you know?
Oh, I know for sure. It was a matter of not wanting to be alone, not knowing who I was without being in a relationship. It was stereotypical codependency. And it was, my first therapist told me that a healthy relationship is like two fists like this. And when you exit the relationship, you still have two whole fists. But a codependent relationship is all enmeshed. You can't tell who is who, and you can't just differentiate one hand from another hand. So that when it pulls apart, you're left with big gaping holes. And so it takes a lot of work to become whole. And it's easier to then try and find somebody else who's out here wandering around in need of another enmeshment. And it just becomes, you don't know who you are, you don't know what you like, you don't know. It reminds me a lot, I don't know if you ever saw this movie, it's not that great of a movie, but The Runaway Bride.
I saw that.
When she doesn't even at the end of it know what kind of eggs she likes. And she realizes at the end that she doesn't even like eggs. And she has to take that time to fall in love with herself before she can fall in love with anybody else. And it wasn't until I was 30 that I did that. But I had to.
But now what if some people need that?
I needed it.
The codependency.
I needed it. But what I needed more, if I wanted to survive, was I needed to fall in love with myself and to no longer put my soul in somebody else's hands. I mean, it had gotten to the point, it wasn't just a heartbreak. There I was 10 and a half hours away from home, and it wasn't like he just left. He left and took all of my friends with him. So I had no one. No one, nothing.
How old were you then?
30. It was my idea of a nightmare. To be 30, divorced, rejected, abandoned. But I had created that reality. In my fear that would be my reality, I created it.
Do you think we get what we wish for or what we think about?
Absolutely. I am a huge proponent of the law of attraction. I think what you send out, you bring back. If you've ever seen the movie, it's called What the Bleep Do We Know? And it's all about quantum physics and the ability of the human being to create and change their reality. It is part documentary, it's part drama, and it's part cartoon. And it shows chemically and physically how when you say things to yourself like, I'm so fat, I'm so fat, I'm so fat, I'm so fat. There are chemicals in your brain that go to places in your body that create that reality. I think you absolutely get what you send out.
So if we can create our own future by thinking it into existence.
Mm-hmm.
But some people can literally go along and live in their mind, and it's just they create their own world in their mind.
It's a prison.
But then other people will say, "Well, I'm a realist." What does that mean?
My husband. You'd have to
I
interview
mean, what
him
does that
next.
mean? You ever wondered what that means?
I think it depends on the person that's saying it, but in my experience, most of the people that claim to be a realist, that's code for I'm too afraid to say what it is I want.
That's what I think.
I'm too afraid to risk wanting anything. So I'm going to just claim to be a realist when in fact you're just a pessimist.
That's what I think.
I agree.
Narcissistic people, a lot of times.
Yeah, now I feel bad that I've mentioned my husband.
Well, I think some people mean they're a realist because I don't know exactly, but I don't think they mean it in the way that I think they're saying it.
Yeah, I
some
agree.
people. It may be that they just think, well, if it's black or white, everything's black or white.
Sure. And I much prefer all of the different colors in between and the rainbow of things in between. Sure, sometimes the world is black, and sure, sometimes it's white, and there are things in the world that are black or white. This is a table that's black or white.
See, that's what they think they're doing. It's a real
Right.
But
They want to put that out for everything. You know, something is a sin or it's not. Something's good or it isn't. If you do this, you're going to get that. If you know, I think it goes back to fear. I think that there are two, maybe more, but two principles or two objectives, intentions that guide every human. And one is love and one is fear. And everything negative, I think, comes back to fear. And everything positive, I think, goes to love.
that goes back to the Tony Robbins guy, that motivational
Sure.
speaker. He says that we do things for either pain or pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can add more, if you can see more pain or more pleasure, then that's the one you'll go to, whichever one you can train your mind to.
And whatever you think you deserve. But what you think you're allowed to want or allowed to have. Most people walk through their lives thinking, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I can't do that. I'm not good enough. And if they'd only take that blindfold off and realize that that's the same recording in everybody's brain. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I'll never. If you'll just drop that and know that, especially, it amazes me that the most religious or those who claim to be the biggest Christians are the ones with the smallest amount of faith.
I've noticed that too. Why is that?
Fear. Fear. That's the only thing I can think of is fear. You know, in directing, I spend 100% of the time boiling down a character's intentions and communicating that to an actor. And it always comes down to fear or love.
Now, when you tell that to an actor, for someone to be, I'm Dee, and if you're a director, right, and you're wanting me to play this other character,
Mm-hmm.
that would be really hard to do. I mean, we think it's easy, might be easy acting, but for me to act like a surfer, you can forget it. I can't do it. I'm not going to be able to do it. Are some people just given the gift to like become a chameleon and act like that?
Yes.
Like for instance, Johnny Depp. I've been watching that all
on him.
week.
Well, I could ask you the same thing. You know, I come in here and I look at these blueprints. Are some people just given the gift? Yes. Yes. God is a fair God. He gives us all incredible gifts. Now, I can't do. I couldn't do that. I can't do money. Do not give me your checkbook. Don't donate anything to me. It'll be gone before I walk out the door. I'm terrible with money. I can't, like I said, I can't draw. I can't coach basketball. I can't, there are a lot of things I can't do, but there's one thing I do really, really, really well, and it's direct to play. And I think absolutely people are given the gift of, and it's less being able to become a chameleon on the outside and more of the ability to become a chameleon on the inside. Because people think acting is about emotion, but it's not. Acting is about action. It's about intention. It's about what a character wants. So I think a lot of people see it and think, well, that's easy, because the people who do it make it look easy.
Name me an actor that can play various roles.
Tom Hanks.
Well,
I
yes, right.
love him.
He's a wide spectrum.
I love him. Tom Cruise, can't stand him. Same guy every time. Same guy has been a race car driver, a pilot. He's a CIA agent. He's same guy every time. To me, the ability to transform yourself physically, mentally, spiritually in a character, that's Tom Hanks. I mean, if you look at Forrest Gump versus the lawyer he plays in Philadelphia, those were back-to-back Oscars he won.
And totally opposite.
Totally opposite. And when you sit down to watch a Tom Hanks role, you're almost immediately submerged in the fact, or in this new character. You know, nowhere in the captain that he plays, I believe it's a captain, in Saving Private Ryan, nowhere in that part is Captain Phillips, which is the part that he plays in well, the movie's called Captain Phillips, but he's incredible to me. He's absolutely
Saving
incredible.
Private Ryan was one of his greatest movies that people don't talk about.
Oh, absolutely.
The whole movie was good.
Oh, yeah. Well, Steven Spielberg is also a genius.
But now, Johnny Depp has got the Guinness Book of World Records of the highest paying actor. And he can kind of transform.
He
right?
can.
Do you think him in this trial? I can't stop watching it.
You know,
It's not that I like it, but I can't take my eyes off of it.
it's interesting because this is perhaps one of the only pop culture things that I haven't watched. And I think it's probably because it started, the actual live portion of the trial started like a week ago, right? Maybe 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, and I just got into it about a week ago.
And I have been in my busiest time.
Yeah.
So I haven't been home to watch television. We just closed our show, and then we did a mock crash at Bradley, and I was slammed. So when I was at home, and also I have a 6-year-old. So when I'm home, it's either SpongeBob or I'm watching
Rugrats.
I'm telling you,
Who's that? Pickle? What are the characters?
I pay as little attention as possible. It eats my brain cells away. But you know, it's either that or when he goes to bed, I turn on Outlander or I turn on a documentary.
Yeah, I love documentaries.
Oh, can't get enough of them. We were watching this John Wayne Gacy one, this new.
I saw that.
Right. We were watching that the other night, and you know, I've avoided this Johnny Depp thing, and I'm really glad that I have. I'm really glad
Well,
that I
it's
have.
really good.
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me.
I wonder if he's acting in that.
I think as an actor, you're always we're all always
He's cool.
acting.
He's cool. A cool guy. I don't know if he's guilty or not, but he's a cool. He's very calm. Got a good demeanor.
Absolutely. Well, you have to be. You know.
Now, how did you get into? Now, as directing, you're not an actor.
No, thank God, no, not anymore. And I used to be. I was for a very long time. It's almost like, you know, you have to have played ball to coach ball. I was an actor for the longest time. I started at Cleveland. I graduated from Cleveland High in '92, and I started acting there. And it was a hobby. You know, when I went to college, I was in shows in college, and then
Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But one of the things
What
that
did you like about it? What drew? Why are you drawn to that and I'm not?
I liked the people. I liked the weirdos. I was one of them. I liked the level of acceptance that always seems to surround a theater program.
Why? Now, why is that? Because you're exactly right. Like computer people are known as kind of, I guess, nerds or geeks.
Sure.
I was always
Loners.
I was always with the, I don't know, I levitated towards the maybe rougher people,
Yeah.
for whatever reason. And you've levitated towards people in acting who are generally extrovert, but they're introvert when it comes to, they're introverted, but they're more extroverted when it comes to their small groups. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. And what's interesting is that my actors at Bradley I have some of the most socially awkward, petrified, anxiety-ridden kids. And then you put them on a stage and it's transformative. It's incredible. I don't know why we gravitate toward certain things. I don't know why. I just know that I wanted their level of acceptance. I always wanted to put my arms around people and say, whatever you are, whatever you're bringing to the table is okay. And I wanted somebody to say that to me. And my brothers and sister were always athletes, and I just never really was. I wasn't, but you could, from almost birth, you could put me up in front of people and I was never afraid. It just never bothered me. And so I acted at Cleveland and then went on to college, and I remember walking across the stage. I went to the same school my brother Alan did, and I remember graduating and thinking, oh, I've majored in the wrong thing.
What did you major in?
Sociology, which at the time I didn't realize how closely related to drama that is, and ultimately to teaching drama. Excuse me. But I remember thinking, ugh, and then I had a conversation with my dad. My poor father, I never will forget that day. He looked at me and said, oh, God. He just paid for this 4-year private school, and I'm saying, I need to go back. And he said, okay. And I immediately, I think I was home 2 weeks after graduating, and I turned around and went straight back up to the University of Kentucky and got into a master's program. And
in sociology?
No, in theater.
Oh.
Because I went to him and said, I've majored in the wrong thing. And he said, oh, God. It's a great time to realize that. But here's the thing is that at 21, and you may have known what you wanted to do at 21. I did not. It took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do and then ultimately to refine it to what I should do. I knew at 21 it was somewhere in theater, that it was somewhere around that. I didn't know exactly what. And so that's what my first master's degree was for. I acted and I wrote and I went into arts administration, and I took that 2.5 years to figure out exactly what I wanted to do in theater. And very, very quickly, it was obvious to me that I had a gift in directing. I could look at a play and know exactly how the lines were supposed to be said, what the staging should be, what music should be underneath a scene, what the intentions of the characters were, and furthermore, I knew how to communicate that to actors. It was, the minute it happened, I'll never forget it. The minute it happened, it was like God opened up the top of my brain and went, hey. And that's still what it feels like now. That's absolutely still what it feels like.
To become a director?
To be in the process of directing. Oh. To be in the theater. If my kids, which it's hard to get them to shut up sometimes, but if they'll give me a minute and they'll stop talking and stop asking so many questions all the time, then I can hear. I just, the ideas just come.
Now you're known as 2 things.
Just 2?
You're known as the 4th Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And the liberal,
most outspoken, flaming liberal.
Flaming liberal.
Yes.
Why do they call it flaming?
I don't know. Maybe because it's kind of like running naked on fire through. It sure feels that way here sometimes.
What was it like being the 4th Smith?
Wonderful.
You got Alan,
and
Kent,
hard.
and
Yes.
Leslie, right?
Mm-hmm. And they all grew up in a pack. before me. You know, they are 13, 11, and 7 years older than me. So by the time I came along, you know, Kent and Alan were almost in high school. And, you know, I felt a lot like I was constantly trying to catch up. And I would hear these stories about when they were young and the funny stories about, but then when it got time for me to really kind of hit my formative years and grow up, they were all gone. So for all intents and purposes, I was an only child.
Do you think that parents raise the first child with real caution and the second child is a little less cautious and the third and fourth one they'll let eat dirt?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I only have one, so I can't speak from personal experience. But, you know, I have lots of nieces and nephews, and so I've kind of watched my brothers and sister go through that process.
Yeah.
So when Jacob was born, I wasn't that paranoid mother.
Yeah.
I also had him at 41. So, you know, you chill out a lot.
Yeah, that's what I guess
41.
I mean. You almost start to say, well, it'll be okay. I've
Yeah.
seen this phase.
Yeah, rub some dirt on it.
Yeah.
Maybe I.
Yeah.
So, but I think that, and this is not by any stretch of the imagination a criticism of my parents. I think that by the time I came along, my parents were tired of being parents, and I think anybody would have been. I mean, clearly I was a surprise, but my mom and dad, I remember the first time I ever got in trouble, and there was only one time that I ever got in trouble, and the consequences were enough to where I never got in trouble again. But I remember my dad looking at me and saying, "I'm not going through this again." And I looked at him and said, "But this is my first time." And he said, "I don't care. I'm not going through this again." And so that stuck with me. So I didn't make him go through it again.
But you left Cleveland at what? How old?
17.
To go to college?
I did, yes. And
In Chattanooga?
no,
In Kentucky?
In Danville, Kentucky. And it was 4 hours away. And I liked the fact that it was small, but I liked the fact that it was far away. I knew from a young age that my beliefs didn't fit into the mold down here. I knew that I needed to go somewhere else. And at the time, I didn't think that I would ever come back, because I just thought maybe this wasn't the right place permanently for me. But when I did eventually come back, I remember my uncle, who's also a liberal, and he lives in Iowa. But he said, "I want you, before you take this job at Bradley," he said, I want you to make sure that your beliefs, that you know that you are strong enough in your beliefs that they will remain intact, that you will not give an inch, that you will grow in your beliefs and you will listen, but don't you can't go down there and let the light get stomped out of you." And I said, "Okay." And both of my parents said, "I think this is a bad idea."
So you moved to Chicago?
I did. I went from Cleveland to Danville to Lexington to Bloomington, Illinois to Chicago to Louisville for 6 months. I took a job there, and then within like 4 months, we were down in Longboat Key where my family vacations, and my brother at the time was the coach at Bradley, and said, "Hey, I want to talk to you." And he said, Are you about ready to come home?" And I said, No. And he said, "Well, let me tell you." And they had just gotten the money to build the new Fine Arts Center. And the board had said, in order for us to give this money, we want you to hire a theater teacher. That was my understanding of it. And Kent said, I've mentioned your name. And, you know, opportunity comes most often when you don't think you're ready for it, but you get ready quick, because there wasn't ever going to be another chance like that.
Very unlikely.
That highly unlikely. And we also found out at the same time that my father's prostate cancer had metastasized. And he had had a prostatectomy 2 years prior, I want to say. Maybe 4 years prior. But his PSA levels had started to rise again. And we knew what that meant. We knew it wasn't imminent, but we did know that that meant that there was cancer floating in his body, and eventually it would attach to something. And it was the exact same week that we found that out, that this job opportunity, and there was just a lot of God going. And also at the time, you know, when I was living in Chicago, I was the program director for a nonprofit called the Shanti Foundation for Peace. And we would go into some of the worst schools in Chicago and take art into schools in order to create and foster collaboration and nonviolence. We would take the artistic process into these classrooms. Now, I felt like that I was taking a chisel to, you know, a tiny little rock hammer to a crater. There was no way I was ever going to make a difference in some of these neighborhoods. But I had learned through that I really wanted to direct kids, that I wanted to have a position at one school, where I was on staff at one school, so that I could get to know, you know, a group of kids and stay with them.
What's the point?
The point of?
Teaching kids theater.
The number one point to me is to make them feel important, seen, heard. This
group that you typically say are a different group.
Oh, sure. If Lady Gaga calls her fans her little monsters, these are my little monsters. You know, they're the kids that are left of center. And sometimes the popular kids, sometimes the athletes come and hop on stage with us. You know, we've had baseball players.
You're just talking as a general rule.
Generally, it's the kids that are left of center, the kids that don't really have another place to go.
Do you think you were left of center?
Oh, I was so far left of center. I was in another zip code from center. The way that I thought and the way that I saw things, just always was. And so I was always, you know, just let your freak flag fly. Whoever you are, just bring it. And those are the kids that make the best plays. You know, those are the kids that get in there and design lights like nobody's business. And those are the kids that become the chameleons on stage. And those are the kids, and not all of them do. You know, we have, you know, a group of kids that just kind of likes to just hang out around us. That's fine too. You know, there always seems to be something that they can do though. You know, they can work backstage, or they can be in the company of a musical, or they can, not everybody's a lead.
What do y'all have, like you have 6 periods? They still do periods?
No, we have block schedule.
Uh-huh.
And thank goodness that we do. We have 4. We have 4 class periods. And my rehearsals now start at 2 o'clock, which is so wonderful, because back when I started, our rehearsals wouldn't start until 4. And I pushed my kids like I push professional actors, and still do. So we have 3-hour rehearsals. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we rehearse 3 hours, and then on Saturday and Sunday we come in for 3.
Is rehearsing the play you're getting ready to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why do they call it plays versus a movie? It's because a play
is live on stage. It's changing. There are no cuts. You can't say, hey, stop that, go back, take that out. You can't flub a line. There are no timeouts. There's no halftime. In a film, you can have a bad day of shooting and come back and shoot that same scene, and it's brilliant.
Or do the CGI thing.
Sure. Edit it. Edit something out. Edit a tattoo out. Edit a cup out. Edit anything out. Live theater, from the second the curtain goes up, from the second the lights go up, you're on your own.
John Malkovich was
He's incredible.
He's one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah, me too.
And what a nut, right? Mm-hmm. You talk about a nut. He's a nut.
Well, I think 2 things about kind of actors and being nutty is that, one, they're kind of allowed to be. You know, it seems to be forgiven.
Accepted. There.
Yes, that you know, the more eclectic you are, that must mean the more talented you are, which I don't find that that's always the case. But I think also Hollywood and the amount of money that exists and the amount of praise for such a tiny thing skews somebody's perspective. So I think that you're allowed to be a little bit more loony than you are maybe in the real world. And then also I think it kind of takes somebody who's a little off to transform themselves into different characters every day.
And another thing, to succeed in that business is, it's the equivalent to getting drafted by the NFL, right?
It's the equivalent to going number one in the WNBA,
Which
like
is like
Ryan Howard just did. There's one. So if you want to do theater, you got to want to do all of theater. You've got to want to
because you're probably going to land somewhere else.
Yes, you will.
You know, your job's a lot like mine. I'm not a carpenter, but I'm a contractor. I'm not a plumber, but I'm a contractor.
Right.
So I oversee, coordinate. I think of it as a maestro.
Yeah.
Say, okay, let's do the drums. Now the.
Yeah, I'm the boss. I'm the manager of the whole thing. I got to make sure that each individual part,
And you
goes,
got to know a little bit about them.
I do.
But not. I don't know how you explain it.
I have to know how to tell my lighting designer what I want. I have to know how to tell my sound designer exactly what I want. I have to know the words of communication.
You know what I think it is? Because I've thought about it before. I think that I get such a dopamine, I guess, if you would,
Sure,
over
it's
the
total
building
high.
business. That if I was to focus on just one sector, it wouldn't give me that high.
Absolutely.
So if I can have all these people doing parts of it, I can get a big high.
Yeah, it's
That makes sense.
Yes, you're the juggler. I've got to have balls in the air constantly all the time, and I would be so bored.
It's a curse.
But it's also a big blessing. It's a huge blessing. But yes, I see behind your eyes the fatigue.
It's fatigue.
And I'm the same way. You know, this past week we did a mock crash at Bradley. And I remember, I hope he forgives me for this, but my principal, Patrick Spangler, not a theater person. And last year when we did it, you talk about nervous Nelly. He was in my face at every minute of this actual mock crash. Now, what we do is I write, direct, and we film a movie that is before the live crash and then the after. So it's the lead up to the crash and then it's the consequences of what have happened after. Smack in the middle is an actual crash at Bradley that we have staged. So there are kids out there with fake blood and wounds and, and the entire, county descends on Bradley's back parking lot. Life Force, the fire department, EMT, the coroner. We had Stosh and Mario from he's a drug dog, and we had Joker was there on scene this time, and all of these moving parts. I've got two groups of kids in two different theaters watching part one. I've got to coordinate the exact moment that they get done with part one to head out to the parking lot to communicate with EMS, to send the call, to send all of these vehicles that are staged up on Country Club Drive. And you talk about chaos.
I think I heard it.
I'm sure you did. So it's, it's crazy. It's helicopter. And last year, from 10 minutes before, Patrick's, do you have this under control? Do you have this under control? What about this? Have you done this? Have you done this? And finally I said, go over and stand over there.
I bet he did.
You're not a theater person. And this time, I called him the night before, and now granted, I'm not a principal, and he's incredible. There's nobody I'd rather work for. But I called him the night before, and I said, I have one favor. And he said, I promise I won't do what I did last year. Well, it's so much in his nature to worry because he's the boss of all
Yeah.
of he's the boss of me.
Yeah.
And all these moving parts. And so, of course, he couldn't help it. I could see him out of the corner of my eye as all these, emergency vehicles are descending and Life Force starts to fly over. Well, we had Life Force landing on our practice field. Well, I'm sure that that we've recently gotten a multi-million-dollar actual turf field.
Yeah, I heard that, yeah.
And he's standing next to me. I can feel him. And he says, where are they going? And I said, they're going to land on the practice field. And so much of me wanted to say, they're about to land on the football field, just to watch him just melt down.
Yeah.
But I said, they're about to land on the practice field. And he goes, are you sure that that's where they're going? Because he's looking over the actual field and to the practice field.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a difference of about that much room, whether he's going over, one side of the press box or straight down onto the field. And Patrick's going, oh gosh, well, and I looked at him, I said, well, if he lands on the field, it's too late now. Like, I'm not going to run up there. And sure enough, I went, and it sits right down right where we said it was going to. And I looked at him and I said, look at that. Just how what I said was going to happen. And he goes, oh, shut up. He's great.
Well, he might have known that you were planning on putting on the practice field.
Yeah,
right?
but it didn't matter in that moment. It was awfully close for him.
But now this is the practice. This is the artificial turf that they play on, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean,
but they did not land on that. They landed on the practice field, and that was the plan always. So it's just non-theater people worrying about, like right in the middle of a production. It's one of my favorite things is to just dump somebody right in the middle and be like, have a good time.
do you have some actors that are when you're talking about a theater and plays, I'm thinking about the actor, but you're thinking about the sound man, the light person, all of this stuff.
Sure.
You sat on a high stool
No.
with that thing?
No. I don't need a microphone. I'm the loudest person I know, other than maybe my brother when he's coaching. I coach from I direct from what's called the pit, which is the area right below the stage.
Not above?
Not above. I direct from below the pit. My job as a director is to be the ultimate audience member. So I'm creating a work of art that I want you or my mom or anyone to be able to come in and just sit and watch. And so from the beginning of it to the end, I am the essential audience member. So I'm experiencing everything that an audience member would experience. And
because if you're sitting on a stool, you're seeing it different.
yeah, it's not the same. So I also tend to move all around the house. I will sit in one area for one run and in another area for another run because the sight lines are different. More often than not, I'm moving around. If I get stationary, then I have to be moving when the actors are doing a run. But you can also tell when I really like something, and my kids may not even know this, but I'll start to pace back and forth in the pit watching them. And I do this funny thing with my fingers. I'll start doing this and this. And that means there's good stuff going here. There's good stuff going on. And so I never over prepare for rehearsal. I just trust that they're going to do their job and the ideas are going to come. And then I'm going to think of things that will happen.
What do you know? How do you know what plays to do? Do you pick them or you have the same one every year?
Oh, no. We've not done the same play. Well, let me correct myself. There were 3 years there where we did Best Christmas Pageant Ever every Christmas. Because I really like that as a tradition. But no, we've not done the same musical twice. And we've not done the same straight play twice. I basically pick musicals based on who I know I have the next year, the talent that I know that I have. And, like this past year, we did School of Rock. And it was because I knew that I had that lead character and that my actor was that guy. Mm-hmm. I knew that I had a very strong partnership with Yachty Westfield, who runs, the Art of Noise. And I knew we had a bunch of musicians. We had 2 bands on stage the entire time, which in itself, oh God, in itself was extremely difficult from a sound perspective. But, I know who I have, and so I know kind of what place to gravitate toward. But I also always choose shows that carry a theme that I want to explore in my own life. So if the theme of a play, let's say Wizard of Oz, the theme of the Wizard of Oz is that you always had everything that you wanted and everything that you needed from the minute you started wanting it.
Did you know that the Wizard of Oz was also he played several characters in that, didn't he?
He did. Mm-hmm.
Which ones did he play?
He played the doorman. He
played the guy that opened the door.
Mm-hmm. He plays the doorman. He plays the guy who drives the horse into Oz. He plays the gypsy in the beginning, who says, let's look into my crystal ball, and
And then he played the Wizard of Oz.
He plays the wizard. Mm-hmm.
And wasn't he one of the other characters too?
I'm sure I'm
Why'd
forgetting.
they do that, I reckon?
Well, a couple of reasons. Because, you know that the farmhands in the beginning of the movie, the farmhands are the scarecrow.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
that's why she dreamed about them.
Right. Because in essence, it's all a dream. But I think that the reason why they did that was in terms of his character and why they cast him in all those different parts is because the entire time the wizard is built up to be this huge thing, and it's really just one guy sitting behind a curtain with a computer or with a machine.
And we're all wanting to look behind the curtain.
Yeah,
just to make sure that there is no wizard there.
Right, but we all play into that perception of something or somebody being in control all the time that we can't challenge or question.
Let me tell you about Capstar Bank. They're located in Nashville, Hendersonville, Gallatin, Athens, Madisonville, Sweetwater, Etowah, and in Cleveland at 950 25th Street and 3855 North Ocoee Street. I've used them. I like them. Give them a try. They're no problem.
We're all either afraid of or bow down to whatever this idea is of this big bad being in control. If you remember the image of the wizard, once it actually starts going, it's this fire and this big scary head in the sky. It's almost the godlike, this big
Do you
face.
think that's what they were trying to portray?
I think that there's some parallels there. I think that there's definitely some parallels. I think that, the fact that it's an Emerald City, that there's a golden path that goes to it.
Yellow Brick Road.
That there's a big gate in front of it that you have to get past. And then once you get in there,
And it's complicated. Nobody knows really what you have to do to get in.
Yeah, and nobody can get an appointment with the guy. I definitely think that. I definitely think that. And then in the end, it ends up being just a dude, which I think that's where the parallels stop, because I do believe in God, and I do believe in a higher power that is a source of good that's over all of us. I do have a different opinion, though, about the fiery fear of this being that's out to get you. That's out to get us. That's out to catch you. That's out to,
I can't buy that.
I don't know. Fine. I mean, if that's your definition of God, roll with that. Perfect. That's not what I believe in. That is not.
You always think that God says He loves us as much as like His own children. Well, there's nothing you wouldn't do for your kids.
Nothing. And you very seldom see their flaws.
So if that's the parallel, then he's not out to get me.
No, and this kind of goes into what I believe in, but in terms of kind of the root of my liberal thoughts and liberal beliefs.
Now, first, let's talk about this. Why the word liberal?
I don't know.
I mean, because you're liberal
I guess 'cause
in
I'm using the word that everybody here is comfortable with.
I don't know why they get that.
I don't know. And then they'll say, well, also a Democrat. Well, I don't even know if that's the truth either, because the conversations that I've had with my family and friends, there are huge things that we agree on.
Mm-hmm. You're not that far removed from a Smith.
No. Well, but here's the thing: is that we weren't even raised. I remember my parents loving Ronald Reagan, but also then voting for Clinton. I remember.
I voted for Clinton.
I did too, and so we were raised. Is mugwump the term where you're you vote for the person and not the party? That's the way Mom and Dad always. I didn't even know that my grandfather Tip was a huge Democrat until like maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
I think the Democrats are more the way the Republicans think now. I think the lines have been blurred. I think the only thing that defines the lines is what the media's trying to tell us, because I don't think me and you don't. I mean, I'm a Republican. You're a Democrat.
And isn't it crazy that of all the people in the world...
And I take that back. I actually didn't vote for Clinton. If I had to again, I would have. I thought I voted for him, but I didn't.
But of all the people in the United States...
But he was a good president.
I agree.
Very good president.
I agree. But there are more flavors at Baskin-Robbins for people to choose from than there are political parties.
That is so insane to me.
And furthermore, there is this mind virus against, the entire Democratic Party or all of liberals or the entire Republican Party and all of Republicans. And what I have found time and time again is that in my conversations with my Republican friends, that we find entirely more common ground. And that's what I've been able to do, is kind of be a bridge. I had as my Twitter handle not too long ago, everybody's favorite liberal, because I don't get upset. I don't delete people off of my Facebook page if they come on and disagree. I only ask that you're respectful. I love the conversation. The minute I stop learning is the minute I take my last breath. But don't come on and be offensive. Don't come on and try and shove your beliefs down people's throats. Don't be critical. But please do come on and let's have a conversation. Because
can we say 1776?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, of course. I mean, you can say anything you want, I mean... But
what about this new woke thing?
Well, that's another thing.
Is that hurting your industry any? Because they claim that's what's hurt Netflix. I don't know.
Well, my industry hurts all the time. We are starving artists. Nobody comes to see theater. Nobody does. We had probably the lowest turnout that we've ever had of a spring play of ours. And it amazes me that people just don't go see theater. We're going to keep doing it.
You know what I think it is? You don't advertise it. Because I didn't know. Where?
On Mix 104.1, in the banner, all over social media. We get advertisements all over. Like, that's one of our biggest fundraisers, is we do a huge...
But I'm on all of those things, and I didn't know it.
And I'll go even further and say that I will boost the posts, meaning I'm paying for the posts to go out on Facebook, and still people don't see it. We have a billboard right up here at Walmart that advertises our shows.
My cousin Jill Ormby, she does one of those things. Do you know her?
I do.
What is it she does?
I don't know
it's at the theater.
I don't know for sure.
They did a play here a while back.
Well, but to go back to your initial question, what do I think about this woke culture? I think that woke is a buzzword that Republicans have taken and screwed around with and bastardized.
What do you
Because that's
think
not
it
what
means?
it means. Woke means to be awake.
To be woken up to the
Yes,
oppressions of
yes.
others.
Yes, to be awakened, to be woken up from your slumber. It was
And
something,
be aware of what?
whatever, but
Not necessarily the oppressions of others.
not necessarily the oppressions of others. It started, and I please, if I'm wrong, somebody correct me. But from what I remember, it started as an African American colloquialism about, well, she's woke. You're aware. It could mean anything. And then,
Oh, I see.
And then all of a sudden, it became.
Yeah. Like defund the police, that kind of got bastardized.
It was like
that wasn't what they.
Nobody's trying to take money. Stop the madness.
And maybe it's not the people. Maybe it's the media.
It absolutely is, and I think that it all goes back to love or fear. People are so afraid that their kids are going to be indoctrinated, and that is a legitimate fear. But with the whole critical race theory thing too, I don't even know what that is.
Nobody does.
But we're all afraid of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember sitting in the Fine Arts Center last August, and they were telling us how severe it was going to be if we talked about these things in our classroom, and I was like,
Don't even know what it is.
I'm screwed. We talk about everything.
Yeah.
Do I stand in front of my kids and say that I think that they should believe a certain way? No.
No.
Absolutely not. Do we have open discussions about things? Yeah. Do I respect all opinions? Absolutely. What I don't respect, though, is that the fear has taken certain buzzwords or certain things that were actually, to me, good concepts and turned them into malicious, kinds of things. I mean, this whole this fear of transgender kids, it's kind of like you'll go through your entire high school career and never have a conversation about this. But now, because the entire media and everybody's focused on it, oh my God, what? Stop. Just stop the madness.
Don't give it air.
Yeah, exactly.
Just don't even bring it up.
Just focus on how we are similar. Focus on how we are the same.
Or maybe just don't even worry about it. Neither way.
Well, that's kind of, I'm
Just
all
ignore
about
it.
not worrying, La vie boheme, the bohemian life. But see, I get away with that.
Yeah.
I'm the youngest, I'm the black sheep, I'm the kooky theater director, I get to be a liberal, I get to walk around with flowers in my hair. I get away with a lot.
I bet you don't think much different than I do.
I'm certain that we don't. I'm certain. And I'll go even one step further to say that even my beliefs have affected members of my family. People think that because I believe a certain way, that my brother-in-law, who is running for a political position, must think the same way.
Nobody thinks that.
Well, you'd be
He
surprised.
No.
You'd be surprised. It's been insinuated. And the arguments that we have had, or rather, the respectful debates and conversations that we have been insightful and enlightening. Alan doesn't tell anybody who's going to vote for ever. Leslie would rather talk about dirt than talk about politics. Kent gets all riled up about anything. So you can get Kent, you can start in on Kent. Well, did you see this? If Kent picks up the Johnny Depp trial, then it'll be all over. And I love it.
Who's more like your father?
Alan.
Who's more like your mother?
Me. That was quick. Me. My sister? Don't tell my sister that. My sister is probably more like my mom in that they both make everything beautiful. My sister is sunshine.
She was real smart in school.
I watched your interview with her.
Yeah, she really was.
And she does not believe that she was. She went through life thinking she was stupid.
She was in the higher classes, and she denies it.
She really wasn't.
She was.
Okay.
Or either I was in the remedial classes. Maybe she was in the normal classes, and I was in the remedial classes.
Maybe. But I guess I would have to say, I answered that very quickly and said me. And I think it's probably because my mom and I are both very, very spirited, very, very free thinkers. But my sister and my mom have almost the identical personality, and they make everything beautiful. My sister is sunshine. I'm not as nice as she is. Never will be.
Do you think that people's birth date affects their personality, like a zodiac signs? When's your birthday?
June 17th.
Which makes you
It makes me a Gemini.
So Geminis have two personalities, right?
Right, they're the twins. And I'm not that big a hippie. I think that you can probably find a similarity in anybody's personality and any zodiac sign.
But now I'm not a hippie either, but I really believe that your star sign will affect your personality. I see it all the time.
You're probably also a closet Democrat.
I don't think so.
But yeah, I think that there's merit in all of the theories.
Who knows what the theory is? Is this just like Alice in Wonderland?
Yes.
All the different theories?
Yes, and I'm the Mad Hatter.
Everybody's got a different take on everything. And
Sure.
we're trying to dissect it and figure it out. Our personalities, we want to look behind the curtain and see if there's a wizard behind there, or discredit it one, going to the next thing.
Well, it makes us feel better. It makes us have a sense of control over.
Or are we really looking for the answer?
Both, I think. I think the answer and the knowledge brings us a sense of control.
Now, let's go back to the Forrest Gump movie, the last scene.
Right.
When the feather's floating. No, what was it? He said,
Well, it all comes full circle. One of the very first things that you see is Forrest getting on the bus, and he says, "Is this the bus to school?" And she says,
she
"Yes,
was rude.
My name is." She actually wasn't. She's really nice. She opens the door and she's harsh.
was
but
she
she's
smoking
like-
a cigarette? And
She's got gum in her mouth. I think she's like,
she might be smoking a cigarette.
"Are you
too.
coming? This is the bus to school.
Yeah.
You coming?"
Are you getting on the bus?
Yeah. And her name's Dorothy, maybe.
Yeah.
And Forrest gets on the bus. Well, then it's a nightmare for him. But then at the end of the movie, his own son gets on the bus, and she says, "I know you. You're Forrest." And he says, "Yes, I'm Forrest Gump, and you're Dorothy." And this is the bus to
It
school.
wasn't the same lady.
It is.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I didn't catch that.
And the feather in the very beginning of the movie drops out of the book of Curious George at the end and goes back up into the air.
Now, who put the feather in the book originally?
I thought he did, but I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either.
Probably
he didn't.
no one.
When he opened the book, he didn't know the feather flew out.
Right. Probably no one.
So he was oblivious to some things around him.
Mm-hmm. It might have been the fact that it was just a feather that was caught and went along his journey with him.
No, I think somebody put the feather in there to mark the book or something. Maybe his mother. But the feather had gone through his life, and as he opened the book, the feather flew out.
And the feather then goes on.
But what was it in the end? At the end, he said,
"Forrest, I want to tell you something." He says, "I want to tell you I love you." And he says, "I'll be right here when you get home." And he sits down, and the feather is at his shoe.
But he says, "I don't know." He said, "I don't know what life is." He said, I'm not sure if it's destiny or
That could be when he's talking at Jenny's grave.
That's what, under the tree.
Yes.
He said, I don't know what.
Yeah, he's talking through. He's a, I don't know if
If it's fate.
we'd have to Google the quote.
But he said, I think it's a little of both. Mm-hmm. Which was still not an answer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well.
I mean,
yeah. No, it's not.
I think the premise was that Forrest did everything right. He followed orders in the Army. He followed the orders to play in ping. When that guy says, "Oh, here's how you play ping pong, Forrest," and he did that exactly right.
He loved one girl.
Yeah. So he did everything exactly right.
And still lost the love of his life.
Well, that girl really, I wasn't a big fan of hers.
The character?
She should have stayed with him.
Well, she was being abused. She
still should have stuck with Forrest.
Well, she came back to him in the end. But she had a long journey she had to go on, too.
But she only came back to him because she had cancer and she was dying, right?
She didn't have cancer. She had HIV.
Ah.
But she comes back to him because
he would take care of
little
Forrest.
Little Forrest. But I also thought that she had come full circle and that she now knew that Forrest knew what love was when she didn't think that he did.
No, he said before she was going upstairs, he said, I don't know what love is.
He said, I know what love is.
No, he said, I know what, yeah.
He said, I may be a simple man, but I know what love is. Because she said, you don't know what love is. So I think when he says it's a little bit of both, that the answer is that there is no answer. You can spend your entire life looking for the golden ticket, or looking for the ruby slippers, or looking for the perfect show, or looking for the perfect partner, or looking for the perfect life to lead. But there is no perfect. It's perfect to be imperfect.
And maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe everything we're going to do is going to happen anyway. Mm-hmm. Mm. Did you ever see the movie Into the Wild?
Yes.
And at the end...
You're a big movie buff.
I'm a big movie buff. And he said... he wrote down in the book before he died, he says... Because he had finally gotten to where he was out into the wild, living by himself, and he was going to have all this fun. And he said... Happiness only exists when shared.
Yes.
So maybe life is just relationships.
I think that we are definitely designed to be social beings. I think that we find our joy in each other. I think that the recognition of a common ground in another person's eyes or in another person's heart, I think that's God. I think that when you look at someone and you both kind of go, yeah, that feeling, that's God. That's God's presence talking to you, saying, love each other. Find that common ground with one another.
But some people don't want to.
I can't help them.
Maybe they're just not interested.
Or maybe they're afraid. I think, again, that I think a lot of people see, because we are so, our minds work in such a simple way in terms of the concept of God and what heaven is like. And I think that we conceive of a finite amount of room. And it seems like there are a lot of Christians, not all Christians, but a lot of Christians think that there's a certain amount of room in heaven and that not everybody gets in, and it makes them feel better to be better. And I think that there's room for everybody. It's hard for me to believe in a hell.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I buy that either. This eternal hell.
I mean, what would be the point?
Well, it says clearly that being with God is light and not is death. So you're just dead.
You're just yeah, you never wake up again.
I just can't see him burning people for
Well,
eternity.
especially not his children, because he says
that goes back to my point.
So even,
what could my kids do that
right.
would make me burn them forever and ever?
But there again, you know, just like I said, I can't say in one breath that our minds cannot conceive of the depth and the breadth of God. My mind can't conceive of a hell, and that may be my own weakness. I don't buy it though. I don't buy it.
Yeah, I just can't see that he's going to burn us in hell because we didn't do something.
Right, or because, you know, somebody could never kind of get to the point where they believed every single thing that they were supposed to believe. It just seems like a lot of
So many people are so much different. I mean, that's why they have green and blue and red. Some people just don't like the same things. And it's hard to make rules for everybody because everybody's just so much different.
And we were all created in His image.
That's why they have different tribes. You know, the Indians, they always stayed with their tribe. But we have to be a member. I remember Raymond, we'd talked about when you came in, Raymond that used to cut my hair. He said that he always wanted to move to the back of the cave, but he couldn't. He had to be a member of the tribe for survival, even though he didn't want to.
Yeah.
On the courthouse square at 30 2nd Street is the law firm of Logan Thompson Law. Since 1965, they have served the legal needs for the good citizens of Cleveland-Bradley County. If you've got a problem, they're no problem. Give them a call. Did you ever see that movie? I keep going back to movies, but Mind Walk.
I've not seen that one.
Yeah, it's where it's the whole premise is a philosopher, a poet, and I can't remember the third one. But they walk on the beach. Might be an astronomer, but they walk on the beach, and the whole thing is they're comparing the different trains of thoughts. You know, the philosopher.
I need to watch it.
It's really
That
good,
sounds like something
and
really
it's one of the one star's in it. A young star, I think it was like I can't remember, but he's a big star now. But anyway, they just walk on the beach, and they're comparing the different thoughts.
Yeah,
But
I'd like
we
to see
can't
it.
sit here and come up with all the different theories that are out there
No.
about.
And we surely can't sit here and say that they're right or wrong.
Well, there's 720,000 different religions.
Absolutely. Yeah. And who am I to stand here and say my way is the one perfect, only way?
You know, I've always wondered. We say, well, they need to read the Bible, but we don't read theirs.
Sure.
I
Absolutely.
mean, why shouldn't we say? They say, well, you read our Bible and we'll read yours. You know, what the Gita and the Quran and then the Bible, and then that's only three.
Yeah.
What
Fear.
about these other things?
Yeah, it's fear. It's fear that, you know, what would happen if your mind was opened or broadened and you realized that you thought a different way?
Well, what if you read it? How would you know it was right? But the only thing is that I know from my own personal experience that there is a God.
I do too.
And I've been dealing with the right one because I've got my own personal, and I can't give it to you, and I can't give it to this, but I'd still have a lot of questions.
Absolutely. I mean, I do as well. And I that's what the joy to me is. It's a journey. You know, it's not a religion, it's a journey. It's a relationship. It's something that you're constantly working on, something that you constantly seek out and explore. And yeah, I don't think that there's any one box that fits everybody.
Do you think people that do in the arts, that's not just theater, that's musicians, singers, writers, painters,
sculptors, architects.
Yeah. Of course, an architect's more on a technical level and how much water and how much wind will hit it and all this other stuff. They're not really into.
These look awfully pretty to me.
But when I look around here, I get anxiety.
It must be kind of like when I look around and I see, you know, half made sets and costumes laying in piles and it's like, God, at some point all this is going to come together, but until it does, I mean, I'm going to, you know, my brother and I both grind our teeth.
At night or when?
All the time. All the time.
Or your teeth aren't cut down though.
They are. I have to have a lot of dental work this summer because, this is exactly what I want
I don't
you
think
to do.
so.
Look at my teeth.
Yeah, don't look that way.
I have.
Because I used to grind my teeth at night.
It's
I get
not stress.
I got these rubber things I put in there. That
Yeah,
way I
it's
can
all
just
the
grind
time,
all I want.
Yeah, it's all the time though. It's all the time.
My oldest son does too.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Stress.
But I'm not stressed.
I am. That's when I'm grinding. And then I think it becomes habit. You know, it's something that you habitually do when you're thinking. You know, it's, oh wait, I'm grinding my teeth. So, but I know.
Are
for
you
me,
organized in your lifestyle?
No. My car's a
Unorganized.
wreck. My desk is a wreck. Yeah, no, I'm a mess.
Do you have any organization in your? Because you can't get to where you're at and not have a certain level.
I have an organization in my vision. I have an organization in my process in terms of directing. I have an organization in the way that my classes lay out and how I teach my Theater Arts 1 classes. I have an organization in, like, when I start a project, you know, I'm constantly making notes, you know, different places.
Like on what?
Pieces of paper. I have 1,000 different notebooks.
They notebooks or sticky notes?
Notebooks. And
Three ring binder or?
just like a spiral notebook. I should get a piece of paper. Now, when I write, I'm extremely organized in my writing. I will lay out in my first paragraph exactly what I'm going to say and then set about saying it. But I tend to organize things in my head, but no, my desk is a wreck, my car's a wreck, my purse is a wreck. Everything's a wreck. Sometimes it'll be really clean. Like, I'll have my mom come and spend the night. My mom comes and spends the night. She came out last night, and she comes out. She came out the night before, or last weekend. And I always love it when Mom comes out because it means I have to clean the house.
Do you live in Polk County?
I do.
Whereabouts?
We live right almost to 411 on Ladd Springs, or off of Ladd Springs. There's a little road called Road Circle.
Davis Kerbo Road?
Past that.
Past that.
Almost to 411.
Oh.
And
There
there's
used
like
to be a restaurant, bar there called the Blue Goose.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we live like on Ladd Springs, or our
At the
road is
very
right
end.
off of Ladd Springs. It's like, you know, there's that marathon there at the end.
Mm-hmm. That's where that used to be.
Okay, we live, the road that runs right there is Ladd Springs.
Yeah.
And we are back toward Bradley County, maybe a mile.
Is that close to the A-frame house? You know what I'm talking about? There's an A-frame house there?
Yes, we are past that. We're past that, but before the marathon. And we have 30-something chickens. Right now
30
we have
chickens.
18. 19,
Yeah, you
25.
brought me some eggs. I
did.
appreciate that.
We have 22 chickens inside right
I'm
now.
going to have breakfast
Wait
for
until
supper
you taste
tonight.
them. They're so good. They free range. And I also have started breeding rabbits. Those little suckers will scratch you though. And I call it Queen Acres.
How many acres are there?
This is an acre and a half.
You can do a lot with an acre and a half if you plan it and think about it.
Yes.
And it's pretty level out there, isn't it?
Yes, and also if you use electric fencing. You have to, if you're going to have livestock of any kind, especially chickens and rabbits. We were decimated. We lost 2 of our flocks, one to dogs and one to something else. But I'll tell you, nothing will zap you like an electric fence. And my husband thinks that it is the funniest thing in the entire world. Well, I just got a knee replacement, and there is nothing that matches a conduit like a titanium knee. And oh my God. And he'll hear me, outside. Sometimes he's so tall, he'll step over the fence, let the chickens out, and forget to unplug the fence. Well, I'll come home, see the chickens out, and assume the fence is unplugged, and I'll go to check on my rabbits, and it's...
Do you have a little barn?
We don't. We have, but we do have like a storage unit, because when I moved out, I had a lot of stuff that wouldn't fit into the size house we had. But I think in Polk County, you have to have, per house, you have to have like a certain amount of storage units or something with it.
It comes with the area.
Yeah, it has to look like a compound
of
some sort. But we have, I call it the chicken condo. And we have the chicken condo, and then we have 2 other chicken coops. And then I have my 4 little rabbit hutches. And
Do you have any trouble with coyotes getting into the chickens?
we haven't had any trouble with anything getting into the chickens since we got that electric fence.
Now, where did you meet him?
I met my husband at animal control because several years ago I was very involved in rescuing dogs and rescuing cats and stray animals. And
Like the ARC or SPCAA?
I was one of the first people who kind of got together to found Cleveland for a no-kill city. And then very soon after that, I left the group.
So that sort of was the forerunner to the SPCAA?
Yes, but the 2 groups are not related anymore.
But that was the beginning.
Yes.
That was coming out of the dog pound.
Yes, it was a group put together. Really came out of Dixie Day Spay, and a lot of passionate women who had gotten together because they were looking at how many dogs were dying on a daily basis in the pound. And I was one of the people who wanted to save the dogs, and my husband was the one that put them down. And we met.
Oh, he worked at the pound.
He did.
I bet I know him.
His name is Thomas Bell. Very tall, blonde. We're opposites. We're complete opposites. So, but that's how I met him.
Well, he doesn't work there anymore?
No. He now is a deputy with Bradley County Sheriff's Office, and he works specifically with the inmates that go out and do work around the community and clean and pick up and whatever. He works under Tim Mason. And so he works at Brad, and he loves that job now.
I got that cat from there.
Really?
Yeah, I went in there, and
it's a great thing to do.
And there was a lady there. I forget what I was doing there.
How long ago was it?
Oh, 2007, maybe 6.
Long time ago.
And yeah, it's been a while. And so I went in there I forget what I was doing there. I think they were wanting me to renovate the building or add on or something. And this lady came in and said, I picked up this cat and we don't like it. I picked this cat up from here and we don't like it. We're bringing it back. And I said,
here, give it to me.
And I was just a bystander. And he said, okay, fill out this form. And I said, well, I'll take it. So I took it and brought it back here. It's been here ever since.
Well,
doesn't
bother anybody.
Doesn't bother anything. Doesn't ever meow.
I didn't even know there was a cat.
No, and it eats that real fancy food. I got.
And you saved a life.
Yeah.
Because that cat undoubtedly in 2006, 2007 would have been put down after being brought back.
I'm sure.
Yeah, owner surrenders went straight to the back.
Now, say it again.
Owner surrenders went straight to the back.
You mean they just kill them immediately or what?
Almost.
I think about those dogs sitting back there with all that yelling and being scared of another dog, and I can't think about it. Can you?
Well, and then they're either deemed aggressive or not, depending upon the most stressful of circumstances and the most emotional of circumstances. And they would bring whole litters of puppies in, and not have room there, so they would have to euthanize half the litter of puppies.
How did they do that?
It was left up to the guys.
In like a gas?
No, at the time they did a shot to the heart.
Like a syringe? Mm-hmm. Golly.
Yeah, I don't even like to talk about it anymore.
We're a brutal society, aren't we?
Yes, we are. We are.
You know, the unsung heroes is that veterinarian that keeps them from having offspring. Mr. Taylor.
That's well, at all of the vets here, but Dixie Day Spay offers a $50 spay and neuter, and that saves lives.
That
spay
saves.
and neuter your animals. But we live in a place where, especially in the country and in Polk County and in the rural areas of Bradley County, people just, it's just not something, it's not a priority. And so they'll have a dog and the neighbor's dog will come over, and then we have 12 dogs, and then we have 17 cats, and the only thing that can be done is that people scoop them up and take them in.
Because it is a problem. I mean, you can't have...
You've got to spay and neuter. You have to. It's the only thing to do. Now, if you're breeding, hunting dogs, mm-hmm. or if you're breeding Labrador retrievers, like I also have an interest in seeing the breeds preserved, because dogs have specific purposes for what they were born and bred to do. But I stand in kind of awe of that after what happened with my 2 pit bull girls. And that was kind of the end of a lot of rescue for me, is that, I really, for the longest time, had preached from the highest mountaintops that, every dog was the same, and that there weren't, that bully breeds were not more dangerous or not violent, or, I was high on a soapbox on a lot of things. I disagreed with breeding dogs, period. I didn't care what you were breeding them for. I've changed a lot since then, but I watched my 2 dogs kill each other on my front lawn, and they were pits, and they were litter mates, and they had never fought. There had never been a cross moment between them, and there was one time where, and this was right after my son was born, and they went after each other. It was a bunch of bad circumstances. There were too many people in our living room. There were treats involved. I had never seen them go after each other. I'd never watched anything like that before. But they drew blood, and we put them in the bedroom. And I remember going in there and saying, "What have you done?" And it digressed from there. I hoped that it would not happen again. But they were 5 years old at that time. They'd never fought.
So you're saying something, because there's a big controversy about whether pit bulls are bad dogs or not. And the ones I've seen are just
And I'm not saying I can't at this point say what I think. I just know that those dogs were raised in complete and total love, that they were raised by someone who knows how to raise dogs.
And not aggressive at all?
They were not aggressive at all. They were the sweetest dogs, and once they started fighting, they never stopped. And they would get into a fight about every 4 or 5 months, and here they are ripping each other apart in front of my child. What's to say that it's not going to happen to my child? And so I can't remember exactly when it was, but it hasn't been that long. I want to say maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. I had come home from work, and I had Jacob. I had gotten him set up on the couch, and he was watching something, and I had gotten him something to eat, and I went to go get the dogs out of their crates, and I had them both on leashes, and I was taking them out to tie them out, and I saw them look at each other, and once again it was on, and I just threw the leashes and said, just fight it out. And then, of course, I went inside, and then I came back outside 30 seconds later and went, stop. I tried everything. I tried everything that I could do. I took chicken out of the crock pot that I had just cooked and threw it out there, and nothing. I took the hose. I went out there myself. At one point, I was down on the ground with them, trying to pull them apart.
Nothing would work.
Nothing would work. And like I said, they were sisters and litter mates.
That's traumatic when you watch something like that.
Next to my father's death, it was the worst day of it was the worst thing I've ever seen, because their names were Trouble and Easy, and Easy was killing Trouble, and it was so bloody. I remember saying that my front yard looked like the beach at Normandy. There were puddles of blood everywhere, and I was head to toe. Dog poop and blood and chicken and I got out there with the broom and was just beating as hard as I could on Easy to let go of Trouble, and she had her down and had ripped open her entire chest and had ripped one of her legs open to the point where I could see muscle and bone, and finally, after about 45 minutes, Easy tired out, and I was able to get in her jaw and pry her jaw open, and Trouble stood up to try and walk to me, and her leg broke because all the tendons and everything was. And my father-in-law happened to come by, and I asked him to help me, and we put Trouble on a piece of wood and put her in the very back of the car, and Easy had a couple of puncture wounds. She was fine. I put her in the front seat, and my father-in-law took Jacob, and I knew where I was going and what was going to happen. I knew, and I called my sister, and I said, I'm on my way. I'm putting the girls down. And she said, I'll meet you there. And that was the hardest 20-minute drive, because I could hear Trouble in the back screaming every time we would hit a bump because she was in so much pain. And there sat Easy next to me, just, hi, Mom, and she was perfectly healthy. And sorry, we got to Taylor Animal Hospital, and Mitch Jordan came out, and it was like right at 6 o'clock, and they wheeled them, rushed them both back, into the back. And I was sitting in the waiting room, and there hadn't been any discussion. Like, in my mind, I knew what needed to happen, but they were already working on them. And so their vet tech came into the room and said, "Listen, you might as well go home. It's going to be a while." And I said, "No, you don't understand. Stop.
We can't have this again, right?"
Stop. And so Mitch came in, and he said, "What?" Because he knew me as this diehard dog rescuer that was willing to do anything. And it would have taken several $1,000s to save Trouble, but that didn't matter. And Easy was perfectly fine. But that wasn't the point. The point was that these dogs had fought, and if they had done that to each other, then they would do that to my child. And I think that's the second time I became a mother. I became a mother on the day that my kid was born, and then I became a mother on the day that I chose my child over my dogs. And so I went back, and they had sedated Easy, and Trouble was on the table with tubes and all kinds of stuff running out of her, and I kissed her and told her I was sorry, and he pushed the drugs, and then Leslie, who is my angel, said, "Okay, now we need to go to Easy." And I got down on the ground, and I held her, and she even started to come back around. He said, "We have to do this. She's coming back around." And we put her down. It was awful.
Horrible.
And I remember I got back in the car, but I knew, when I got in that car, I knew what was going to happen. And then A week later, I got Boone. Because a house isn't a home without a dog.
What about a cat?
Just never have liked them much.
Nothing against them.
Nothing against them. I'm all about a big black dog. I'm all about a big
Lab, chocolate lab, or
I
black
have
lab?
a black lab, and I've always wanted a black lab, and it was a big thing for me to do in terms of just go from rescuing a dog from the pound, because every dog I'd ever had come from the pound, and I would live and die by the pound.
Me too, yeah.
And I knew that by getting a dog from any other place, that I was in effect killing a dog, because if I had room in my home for a dog, then I could save one. But I felt like at that point I deserved it. I deserved to get what I wanted, because I had saved thousands of dogs. In this traumatic experience, I always had wanted a black lab. So I found a breeder, and my husband bought me a $400.
Is it a
He's a
purebred?
purebred papered black lab. And his name is Boone.
I've got a black lab.
And I just
named
love
Walker.
him.
But I had a chocolate lab prior to that. And I had a black lab prior to that.
Yeah. I love them.
And
I want a golden, too.
The chocolate labs are a lot, I don't know, I don't want to say sweeter, because that's not a manly word.
It's okay.
But the
Your
chocolate,
virility is safe with me.
the chocolate lab is a more loving dog than any of the black labs.
Well,
They're
my
a
black
little
lab,
different.
I'm telling you,
I don't know about a yellow lab. That was like the movie Old Yeller, right?
Yeah.
I never had a yellow lab.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Boone is just the sweetest. He's just a big dope. He's fat, but he'll follow me. I can't get up and go to the bathroom. I can't get up and go anywhere. The dog's right there, stuck to me like glue.
That's
I
the way
love him. He sleeps with me. He's right at my feet all the time. And his best friend is one of our roosters.
They're not aggressive dogs at all. Is he thin?
No, he's fat and chunky.
Does he run out of the yard? How do you do that?
I mean, he's on a tie out, but now he's taken to. We used to be able to unhook him, and then he'd just run right into the house.
Yeah.
But now you unhook him, and he just goes around the neighborhood.
They can't help it, can they?
No, and he's just so goofy. But he and this rooster play.
They're all the time smiling, aren't they?
Oh yes, and just wanting to lick everything and eats everything, but oh God, he's the sweetest creature. But the silence of Trouble and Easy being gone was the worst part of that.
Well, I had one, the chocolate lab, that slept on my leg for 13 years.
That's Boone.
And boy, it was horrible. It took me, I can't even think about it today. I'll get upset. But it took me 2 months to get over it. That's her picture over there.
Oh.
And her name was Coco. And
I had one of those.
Best dog
His name
that
was
ever,
Wizard.
best dog that ever lives.
Yeah. There's it kind of like your one in true love. You know, your one true. And mine was Wizard. He was my first dog. He was a big black dog, and that's probably why I just love big black dogs.
You know, after she died, it was like 6 months later. This is a true story. We found her. My wife found her walking across the street on Wildwood Avenue. Mm-hmm. Why she was there or why she picked it up, I don't know. But so we had her 13 years. She died. 6 months later, I had to go down to the emergency shelter because they were wanting to do some work there. And here comes this chocolate lab walking right there on Wildwood. And I thought, boy, that looked a lot like Coco, which it wasn't, but I thought, what if it's a relative or something?
Or
It's
what
in
if
the
it's
name
her
neighborhood.
reincarnated?
And so I got to thinking about it, and I hunted for that dog for 2 days in that area, thinking maybe, because it looked like a stray then. Mm-hmm. You know, I came that close to getting the DNA so you could clone them.
Sure. You're almost as crazy as I am.
That would be a big business.
Yeah.
You
real.
wouldn't have to do it right away, but you could say, okay, if I ever clone them,
Yeah.
I've got this one.
I've got another one, yeah. But then you wouldn't have the history that you had with that one dog. But it'd be the closest thing you could get.
I guess. I don't know. That gets... Do you think there's anything to this reincarnation?
Nah.
Nothing?
Maybe. I don't know. I say nah, but I'm convinced that Boone is wizard, so I don't know about human souls, though.
What about the simulation theory?
I don't know anything about that.
Well, some people think that we're in a simulation, that we've gone...
Oh, like it's the Truman Show. Like somebody's up there watching and putting things in our path.
Yeah, like
like
Truman
we're
Show.
a video game.
Yeah.
Well, if we are, I've lost. And if reincarnation is real, then this is my first time. I'm certain that I'm a new soul.
What about deja vu? You ever have that?
Oh, sure.
Well, they say that's proof of the reincarnation.
And it very well could be. I don't have it as much anymore.
You think that there's a true God that, as we know him,
Absolutely.
just not sure how it all shakes out.
I'm not sure how it all shakes out, but I know him. And I think that that's all I need to know. And my moral compass is strong and loud, very loud. And so I need only get alone to hear it.
What do you see the trajectory of your life going now?
Oh, God, that's a good question.
Because you're energetic, you're educated, strong-minded, strong-willed.
I'm pretty happy. And so I would like to, I hope they bury me under the theater at Bradley. I don't want another job. If I were to ever take another job, it would be perhaps running my own school or my own company. But I'm not wild about that idea either. I love the kids that I have. It's just extremely hard to lose them every year. So if I had my own company, I wouldn't have to do that. They could stay around. I'd like to see theater in this town grow and become something that people actually, go and see, so that we could grow from that standpoint.
Who has one like that? Like the...
Connie Gatlin is probably the closest to like an independent director, but there's just not a market for that here. So
how does that... She's an independent director. Mm-hmm. So she makes money by selling tickets and...
I don't know.
But I've often wondered, they always call that a theater company. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's for profit.
I call ours a theater company. It's called Drama Central, and I say we are Bradley Central's in-house theater company because we run it like a theater company.
But we don't even have a place to have a theater except the little theater that next to Alan Jones's. Have you ever been in there?
Is it Creekside or over there by?
Yeah, it used to be the old village.
Right.
You're
right.
too young for that, aren't you?
I vaguely remember it.
You remember going there at all?
Mm-hmm, yes, I do. And I remember that and the old cinema.
Yeah.
I remember those, but very, very slightly.
Hello, I'm Dee Burris. I want to inform you of a special election coverage we're going to have on The Discussion on May the 3rd at 6:30. I will have members of the Liars Table joining me as we watch the election unfold. Please join us Tuesday, May the 3rd on Facebook or YouTube Live. In The Discussion, it's no problem.
There's a good space next to it's right there on Inman by the Summit. It used to be a dry cleaner.
Yep.
That would be a great space. When I lived in Chicago, I had a dream one night, and I don't know why I was coming out of the Stampers building, and But in my dream, I was coming out of the Stampers building. It was Christmas Eve. I had just directed a production of Best Christmas Pageant Ever. And I was leaving the theater with my husband and son. I had neither at the time.
Yeah, that's odd.
Neither a husband or a son. And I was leaving with another family that had helped me direct this.
Well, it was a vivid dream, wasn't it?
Oh, I have very vivid dreams. But yeah, I mean, it was snowing, and it was Christmas Eve. And I don't know why I had the vision of the Stampers building. But that's kind of why I started directing Christmas Pageant. Because I had that dream in Chicago about it.
Have you ever thought about writing plays?
I've written plays.
Have you done them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a show we did. I'm so bad with numbers. I want to say it was 4 years ago. And it was a play called Cinders and Ella. And it was a takeoff of Cinderella.
Cinders and Ella?
Cinders and Ella, and I wrote it. And it was a musical. I don't write music, but what I did was I got online and found public domain songs.
Yeah.
And plugged them into certain places where we could use them in the musical. And rather than trying and reinventing the wheel in terms of coming up with my own storyline, Cinders and Ella is also, or the story Cinderella is also public domain. And so I could do anything I wanted to with it. Uh-huh. And so it's a more modern twist on Cinderella. So I really liked it. I don't know how great I am at writing different voices. Not different accents, but like different character voices. You know, because one person is going to talk a whole lot different than another. And speak differently and use different words. You
mean personalities?
Yes. And you know, down to word choice. You know, because...
Very important.
Absolutely, because, you know, I have this huge vocabulary. But not all characters in my plays would have big vocabularies.
Yeah, because if you were writing a story about a guy that was from Philadelphia, mm-hmm. you'd have to have a whole new vernacular and everything, wouldn't you?
Yep.
Or British or English. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, that's more complicated than I thought.
Right. Well, in high class, low class, different backgrounds.
Do you like it when a character stays his character in the show?
You mean an actor stays?
Like some shows, like The Sopranos. Tony Soprano stayed with his character. Mm-hmm. You knew what he was going to do before it happened. Mm-hmm. They didn't veer from that.
Right.
But some shows you always say, well, that wouldn't have been what I thought that character would have done, and they'd lose me then.
Yes.
What do you call that? Is there a term?
Continuity.
Continuity, yeah.
Yeah, theatrical continuity. Now, I mean, if a character learns, and then you watch them change,
that's different.
That's completely different. But yeah, that's kind of jumping the shark to me. When a character, when they have a character do something that you wouldn't think that they did.
See, they did that with Fonzie on Happy Days.
Yeah, he started jumping the shark.
Yeah, he literally jumped the shark.
Yeah,
that was the worst rated
that was terrible
episode or something.
I mean, it spawned a cliche having to do with negative.
Is that where they get that?
Jump the shark. Yeah, that's where it comes from.
It was a good show till then.
Yeah, they took it too far. They jumped the shark.
Hoss Cartwright never changed clothes on the
right
Bonanza. Right. I mean, he stayed with character.
You didn't have to. Yeah. Sure. I mean, I think that's important, unless you're writing a character who's changing. And then it's got to be a slow change, because going back to what I said in the very beginning, change only happens when it's necessary. People only make change when it's necessary.
How about Quentin Tarantino?
There's one weird dude.
He's from Knoxville.
He is?
He's
I know that.
Isn't he, Gwen? I believe you can look it up. He's from Knoxville,
He's a
Tennessee.
genius. He's also weird. And I would hate to live in his brain. But he writes some.
He was only going to write so many, like 14 movies or 13 or something. He's got maybe 2 more to go. He did what, 12 Years a Slave?
No, he did. You're thinking of Django Unchained.
Yeah. Where did I get 12 Years a Slave? That's what he was.
Yes.
12 Years a Slave.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how long Django was a slave, but I know that
12 years.
Was he?
Yeah, that's where I got that.
Well, there's a movie called 12 Years a Slave.
Oh, is there?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm confused. But Pulp Fiction was great.
Oh, it was brilliant.
Have you ever watched? Are you a movie buff too?
I kind of have to be.
Have you watched Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
I haven't.
Well, I have heard about that for years, and so I got it. I rented it last week, and I thought, I've got to watch this. And I watched it for 30 minutes, and I said, man, this is the craziest movie I've ever seen. And I turned it off, and the next day I started thinking about it, and I thought, that was a pretty good movie now that I think about it. And I went back and re-rented it and watched it again. And you've got to see what the guy's talking about.
Right.
Do you think a writer for some of these shows are trying to get a point across by using this storyline?
They have to be. That's the whole point. Every show, every movie, every episode has a theme, unless it's reality TV. There's always a theme. And the message
whose theme and whose messages is it?
The writers.
Now, here's something I've noticed. I'm a big sitcom buff too, I guess you call it. and at the end it'll say producer so and so, and you can watch certain episodes, and that producer's episodes will be better than the others. So they don't always have the same.
Right. Well, and the producer's the money. That's the money behind the episode.
Which one is it that?
The director is the one in creative control.
Well, that's the one that you can tell the difference.
Yes. That's the one
I can almost, and it's, what is it they do that's different? Is it just the nuances, or?
It's the nuance, it's the vision, it's the same as an architect. I mean, why is one architect better than the other one? Because of how they go about designing a building, or I mean.
Is it stuff that I wouldn't even know that they're doing that's making it a better show for me?
Absolutely, yeah.
Is every picture and every glass and cup, there's
Everything.
nothing.
You are, from the second you sit down, you are being manipulated. From the second you sit down, your mind and your heart are being manipulated by this piece of art.
The director.
Yeah.
Not the producer.
Now the director is taking the writer's work and interpreting it for you. But
now say that again.
The director is taking the writer's work.
All right, let's say this guy over here writes the story.
Right.
And he thinks it's a good story.
Well, I have to think it's a good story before I'll direct it.
You're the director.
Right.
So you're trying to. You're the, what they call, medium?
Yes.
You're the medium.
Yes. And there are different kinds of directors, like Quentin Tarantino writes and directs his own stuff. So there's no medium there. But like for me, I'll take like a Shakespeare play, or I'll take, name the author, it doesn't matter. I'll take it, I'll read it. And from the second I start reading it, I start getting a mental picture of what I want the set to look like, what I want.
What if that's not what he wants or she wants that she wrote?
Well, in Shakespeare's case, he's not coming back to argue with me. But like I said, there are two different types. There are basically two different types of directors. One is an artist and one is an auteur. And an auteur director takes a work and changes it into what he wants it to be. An artistic type director is the type that owes everything to the language. Takes a piece of work and puts it nearly word perfect on the stage. Now, that's semi-impossible while you're directing high school theater, because we'd end up doing Shrek every year. It's the only thing clean. So I have to make edits and change some things. But I prefer to take a piece of work and take that author's intention and create the play around that.
Can you almost take one book or story and have two different people directing it, and it almost come out to just a totally different
It
thing?
absolutely will. It absolutely will. You could take, we mentioned Connie Gatlin. You could take Connie Gatlin and put her in one theater with a play, and you could take me and put me in another theater with a play and forbid us to speak for the process period, and you will go and see two completely different shows.
Now, you heard this new term people are using now, and I don't know if it's a new term they're saying. Well, they're watching a different show, or there's two shows playing. They're watching two movies. In other words, what they're referring to is, I watch Fox, you watch CNN. We're watching two different realities, two different shows.
Yes.
The same thing is happening.
Yes.
But me and you're watching two different shows.
Well, two different mediums are bringing the information to us.
Now, let's just say, okay, this Fox and CNN, let's take them out of it and take politics out of it. Is that happening all around us all the time? We're being influenced by everything around us.
Yes.
Trying to different directors are trying to direct our thoughts.
And different people are trying to
That's what I'm
convince
saying.
us of different things.
Well, they would be the director in that sense.
Right, but to kind of continue the metaphor throughout life is that different people are trying to convince us of different things that are going on. Everybody we meet is sort of a part of the pinball machine that pushes us around and manipulates and affects how we think about things.
Boy, that is scary when you get to really
Well,
delving
either that
into
or
it.
really, really, really fun.
And you don't know they don't even know they're doing it, maybe.
Right. True.
I mean, I look everything from a construction and a business view. Somebody else looks at it through a sports view.
Mm-hmm. I look at it through the lens of a director of theater. But also as a mother.
Now,
I'm completely different.
your character is evolving with the movie.
Yes, and my intention has evolved. My intention is no longer all focused on Lindsey. Now my intention is focused on Jacob and my husband and Lindsey.
Yeah.
But
It gets worse.
yeah, I bet. But that's why I think my uncle said before I moved down here, he said, I want you to make sure that you are solid in your beliefs and that they won't change you.
Now, is that your father's brother?
My father's brother. And he lives in Grinnell, Iowa.
How did their different views of the world change? Do you know?
I only know that my uncle moved and became a professor up there. Staunch Democrat, very liberal. My dad was, like I said, it depended on the issue. It depended upon the election.
And maybe he's just a lot of professors are liberals, aren't they?
Yeah, we tend to get away with it. So, yeah, especially at a small private liberal arts college like he would.
It's
in the north, too.
It's almost like if you're a professor, you're a liberal. If you're a computer guy, you're a geek. If you're a cowboy, you're a fast at the gun.
Well, it kind
Right.
of goes back to what you were saying, like which came first, the chicken or the egg? Do we fall into those roles because of who we are, or do we become those roles because of what we're gifted at doing?
Or somewhere along the line, did we want? Is that the character we wanted to play?
Sure. Did we envision this for ourselves and
Yeah.
then become it?
Because yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
I mean, and if somebody had have done something when my mind was more pliable, maybe I would have been a detective or a brain surgeon.
Right. Right. I think this is my calling. And this is what I was born to do.
To teach or to direct?
Well, my calling has a zip code. It's that specific. It's this specific job at this specific school and this specific combination of teaching and directing.
Do you think the feather's out of the book like in Forrest Gump, or is the feather still in the book?
For me,
Yeah, because you're not even half your life
I
expectancy.
think I am the feather. I think I am the feather. I think that I go from book to book, and from treetop to treetop, and that I make the best of every situation and circumstance. But in that analogy, I think I would be the feather.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.